I was invited to Johannesburg for the ad review conference, and I've never been, so I said surely I would love to come. Trend watching is a super fun job. It really keeps me on my toes because I'm constantly learning and I always have to stay ahead of the curve. As a trend spotter, you have to be a very keen listener. You have to be super curious. You have to ask very compelling questions. But what's different is rather than just reporting what is, you report on what could be. So you take intelligent leaps forward. One, we believe trends are not preordained. Once they are spotted, they can be shaped. And that's very important for us because given that we're in advertising, we're at the center of pop culture and we can help drive and shape those trends. We also believe that foreseeing trends allows us and our clients to stay ahead of the curve, meeting emerging consumer needs and wants before anyone else does. And finally, I see it as my job to bring the outside in. I can't feign to know everything about everyone's business, so I want to inspire, instigate new thinking that's outside of brand, category, or consumer convention. Well, one of the trends that we highlighted in our trends forecast for 2012 and beyond is this idea of marriage optional. So increasingly, there's this cohort of women who are choosing an alternate life route, one that doesn't necessarily include marriage. So it could be a household of one, cohabitating, or single motherhood. And increasingly, you'll see marketers talk to this cohort of women directly rather than treating women as someone who wants to get married or someone who's already married with 2.5 children. One example from a number of years ago from JWT, we were well ahead of the curve for this, is when we worked with De Beers to create the right hand ring. And it was all about empowering women, upwardly mobile women, and it successfully decoupled jewelry from romance, which was really interesting. FOMO, or fear of missing out, is a phenomenon that I've been following for the past couple of years. And fear of missing out is this all-consuming or sometimes uneasy feeling that we're missing out, that our peers are doing, in the know about, or in possession of something more or better than us. So over the past couple of years, we have been working with Smirnoff to tap into the FOMO-inducing you had to be there moments. And one such example is the Smirnoff Nightlife Exchange, where in 2010, 14 cities swapped their nightlife. Last year, 50 cities swapped their nightlife. And basically, the people who were there blogged about it, tweeted about it, and Facebooked about it, and created FOMO in those who weren't there. The second screen to me is so interesting because it's the coming of age of a trend that we spotted a number of years ago, and that is distraction of entertainment. So marketers used to fear that people were doing all of this other stuff while they were watching their programming and therefore their commercials. But what we said back then is that you could turn what could be a negative, that being distraction or media multitasking, into a positive, that being an immersive brand experience. So we're seeing that come to fruition now because the multitasking that people are doing is I'm on my mobile phone while I'm watching a program or a commercial, or I'm on my PC, and therefore they're layering in this interactive experience into the TV experience. Definitely, it's accelerated the time that trends move. So it used to be, 3 to 5 years that trends were being adopted, but it's accelerated everything because it's created a very flat world. And you can find out what I found out in the US by the afternoon and vice versa. It's interesting looking at both developed and developing countries, and I'm fortunate to be a part of a global network of 10,000 people strong. I'm constantly tapping into the planning network, and they help to keep me honest, telling me whether a trend is translating in their market, and if so, how, and I learn a great deal from them. When, back in the day, the US and the UK used to be the arbiters of what's hot, what's not, what's in, what's out, but that's completely changing with technology explosion and the advent of globalization. So a trend is just as likely to come from the emerging world as it is from the developed world these days. I'll give you an example. One of the trends that we spotlighted this year is called navigating the new normal. As the new normal becomes a prolonged normal in the hampered developed world, more brands and more categories are opening up entry points for extremely cost-sensitive consumers. So that means smaller sizes, stripped down offerings, or otherwise more accessible products and services. Now, this idea of like sachet budgeting, for instance, has been around in the emerging world for some time now. And what's so interesting is that developed world marketers are now adopting it as a tactic to reach these extremely cost-sensitive consumers. One of the trends that we're looking at currently is this idea of play as a competitive advantage. For a while now, it's been encouraged in children to have more unstructured playtime, because for a while it got really structured. But now we're looking at adults having this unstructured time. Every moment of our lives is spoken for seemingly, especially with the advent of technology. It's hard to shut down. And when we do have downtime, we tend to zone out either in front of the TV or the computer. And I see a movement starting of brands advocating for just play for play's sake. There are a lot of good things that can be gained from that. Your imagination and your creativity can be increased among them.